Welcome back to This Week in Indies. As volatile as social media sites tend to be, one constant for an online presence can be an artist's website. However, is it viewed as just a placeholder, a backup in case of all loss of cabin pressure, or can it be a viable tool to foster and promote a reasonable marketing strategy? And how can we do that? We'll discuss this today. Then C.L. Cannon will be along with indie books you might enjoy if you're a fan of A Fate Inked in Blood by Danielle L. Jensen. Finally, after sharing what's on tap this week on Go Indie Now, as Blood Fates would have it, we'll have a little fun in the epilogue. So secure that URL and get ready for a little TLC on This Week in Indies with your host, Joe Compton.
For once, I had perfect timing. I was brewing coffee, and I was worried that the coffee maker was going to overwhelm me, but it just ended literally as the intro ended. How awesome is that? I think that's a good sign for today, or maybe it's not a good sign. It might be like the crow on the pole. I don't know. But welcome everybody to This Week in Indies. Yes, I am your host, Joe Compton. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. We really appreciate you being here and joining us for this wonderful conversation I'm about to have with these wonderful humans that I'm about to show you. Excuse me. And so we're going to talk about websites and all the glory and all the punishment and all the things that go along with that aspect of things. And like I said, I have a wonderful looking group of people here. I'm real excited to have them all here. And so let's go down the line and introduce ourselves. I'm just going to go from what I see here. So Dennis, you start us off, please.
Hey, I'm Dennis Myers, a science fiction author with a series in the far future called Rise of the Automated Empire. By day, I am a software developer, and I have been working on web applications for most of my life. It's been a long time.
Awesome. Well, I think then we're excited to have you for this conversation. I'm always excited to have you for any conversation, Dennis.
Well, thank you.
but for this one specifically, it's important. So yeah, I appreciate that. All right, Ben, welcome.
Hi. Thanks for having me. I'm Ben Schenkman, urban fantasy author. My 3-book series that's out right now is called The Devil You Know, and it starts with My Boss is the Devil. As far as this type of thing, I have been creating and hosting websites for many, many years. So having an author website is just the newest entry into the mix.
Nice. Welcome. Nice to have you.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, Miss Cannon. Hello.
Hi, I am Courtney, aka CL Cannon. I write fantasy and sci-fi, and I also own Fiction Atlas Press, and that's where I've got most of my website experience from. I've been building websites for about 18 years now, mostly on WordPress, but I'm really excited to get into this topic today because it's something I love to do.
Awesome. We love having you. All right. Speaking of love having, Mr. Nettles.
What, I'm just crashing the party.
Hello, sir.
Hello, I'm Jim Nettles. So as a writer, I do fiction, nonfiction, science fiction, urban fantasy, horror, all sorts of stuff. Also do a lot of stuff in nonfiction, business, entrepreneurship, tech. Professionally, I've been doing, varieties of business and tech consulting for a long time, including building websites, not only in the author space, but in a lot of different business spaces. And so e-com, all the fun stuff. I think the first website I built was in 1988. So, and no, it wasn't on AngelFire or GeoCities or one of the fun ones. It was really coding it from scratch. So let me get off my lawn.
I love your little thing there. Ramble for cash. All right.
Yeah. Well,
all right. And, Miss Anita Stewart is in the audience. Hello, Anita. Nice to see you. Yeah, this is interesting. There's some schools of thoughts here with how websites really matter, right? There's, like I mentioned in the intro, there's the placeholder idea. There's the the importance of using it as a marketing tool. There's enhancements for whatever you want it to lead to. It could be a conduit to wherever you want to go, a gateway, so to speak. So I'm curious from all of your perspectives to start the conversation where you're at with what your website represents you best as. Where do you feel like you utilize your website and for what purpose? Whoever wants to go.
Go ahead, Dennis, because
Well, I'll just use the example of what just happened. My wife had made lunch plans, which, thank you, Joe, I managed to cancel out of lunch with her friends. And on my way out, as I'm running to make it back here, they were like, well, where can we find the link and all that? All I had to do was say, go to automatedempire.com. Everything is there. It's for me, I use my website as an easy way to say you can find everything you need to know about me, my books, my social media links in this one place. And the fact that I managed to get automatedempire.com, well, there's a story behind that. But when I invented the Automated Empire, that domain name was not available. And it was a good 5 or 6 years before that business went out of business. And I grabbed that domain name. And I have to admit, I got really lucky for that one.
Yeah, if I can add, a lot of it's about name recognition to an extent. We try to, I think, as authors often have a domain that's either our name or a version of it, or again, like for like Fiction Atlas, or for things that are for our publishing arms. So like I have my website, but then I also link it up with the author co-op that I publish with. And so my website is, like Dennis talked about, kind of that one-stop shop for getting everything about me, but I'm also trying to use it as more of a direct sales conduit in some cases. Like I'm setting up direct paperback sales through BookVault. I am going to be linking directly to some audiobook work that I'm doing that's widely distributed for selling direct. But then also it's where my newsletter signups are. It's where everything is. There's a lot of effort now, I think, to replicate what a website is intended to do, like Linktree and all that, gives people how to find me, when it used to just be what you really wanted to do was set up a website so people could find you directly.
Yeah, so I mean, it depends on which me, because I right now I do not have as many sites as I've had in the past. I mean, still have way too many, but that's a different story. But I mean, for example, the author site for me is pretty much right now just a placeholder. There's a couple of campaigns and things like that I'll do during the year where I'll turn on like the blog function to release some special short stories, some things like that. I think the bookstore is broken right now because I pushed an update and then broke something, but it happens. Tech guys, cobbler's kid has no shoes, but it really depends on what do you want to do with the site and how much time do you want to spend on it. Like the Business Essentials book actually started as a website because more than a decade ago at this point, I had a friend of mine ask a question at a convention and was like, hey, can you answer this for me? And as it morphed, the short version of it is as I was doing articles on business and entrepreneurship and other stuff, I'd rewrite them into stuff for the publishing industry, as well as some others. But I just spun it and started throwing it out there as an article base as people would ask questions. And later on, curated it down. It's become this book. At some point, there's a couple of more behind it that kind of, different levels of it. But usually most of that gets done in the workshops. At one point I used to do websites for all the different names I write under. Some of those are now kind of dead and defunct because it was a blend of fiction, nonfiction, media, different stuff like that. But I've built websites where I got paid for writing articles, right? I was getting enough feed through for the articles I was writing. I've written for other people, other sites, other stuff. So it's kind of what are you trying to accomplish? But for most authors these days, I would say what you're looking at is have enough of a landing page to be a business card to say you're real, and have a domain name that people can get to and build a brand around, not at wix.com. Yeah. Please save us all the pain.
I guess all of mine is kind of a mixture of everything you guys have said. And mine is more of a hub where people can find anything they need to know about me. And we're also mostly, I have a lot, I'm like Jim, I have a lot of websites, but my main two are CL Canon and Fiction Atlas. And I make them both kind of point to each other. So there's things that will go both ways. So people are, the right people are getting to the right place. Mostly authors were interested in my Fiction Atlas stuff, but sometimes there will be things like the anthologies that we published through Fiction Atlas that readers are going to want to see. So I do link them together and try to be able to say, this is where you can find anything and everything about me. And if you have questions, email me. So
those two sites could not be more vastly different too, which I found fascinating. And we'll get into that. We'll get into the business versus pleasure aspect of things, because that's what I'm talking about when I mention that, because there's a warmness that you, when you go to clcanon.net, that you get that you don't get from Fiction Atlas Press, because it's a business site for the most part.
And because I haven't updated it in like a long time, like I should.
Okay, fair enough. If I didn't mean to call you out there, that wasn't what I was trying to do. I was trying to point out the difference between business and pleasure, but we'll talk about that in a minute. I'm kind of curious. I wanted to step into another one of our favorite things to answer, which is I wish I knew, right? So what do you wish you knew when you started developing your website that you can share with the audience that maybe will help them when they're trying to figure out their websites?
Well, go ahead, Ben.
Oh, thanks. Much like anything having to do with being like an independent author, I think I wish I knew how much it was going to turn into like a tertiary job. Just like anything, if you decide to do it yourself, DIY, you have to do it yourself. So you're going to need to learn whatever your content management system is. If you're going to pick Joomla, if you're going to pick WordPress, if you're going to, God forbid, learn how to write HTML yourself, you have to make all those decisions. So I wish that I knew when I started that I should have picked whatever the easiest content management system was to work with, because it was going to save me a lot of time in the long run. And I'll say, like, that's a reason why all of my sites are WordPress at this point, because it's just the easiest to manage, maintain, create, and update for me personally.
I feel this so hard, and I felt it very much this morning at about 3 a.m. Dealing with that. Yeah, I'm developing. I'm actually having somebody do my stuff, right, which is probably something I should have done about. I actually, Courtney, you can attest to this. How long ago did I ask you about websites? It was like 6 years ago, right?
It was a while ago, yeah.
And so, like, I've been, that's been on my to-do list forever, and I finally got somebody who's going to help me do all that. But of course, they need all the info, right? So at 3 a.m., I'm doing all the info to add to the website. So, yeah, it never ends. Sorry.
Well, I think to me, the biggest lessons are again, have a domain that people can follow, right? But I think the next biggest thing is decide what intention you have about the website. I've done a ton of consulting, worked with firms doing it, and a lot of it is, ooh, I like this, make it look like this. What do you want it to do? What are you trying to accomplish? And then you have that conversation about, okay, we can do this. We can make it look like that. I don't care what it looks like. I'm starting with, what are you wanting it to do? Do you want a blog? Do you want to have e-commerce on it? Or do you just literally want a landing page for people to go? Because the next question becomes, even if somebody else is maintaining it, if you're wanting to do stuff like blogs and create stuff to try to draw in people with organic traffic and all that good stuff, it's even that alone becomes a lot of work to be consistent, and what I usually tell people, especially if you've never had a site before, if you are just getting started in the business, have a landing page, have your newsletter, have a sign up there, link to your social media, keep it simple until you figure out what you want to do.
See, and I got all those questions in my email, and I said yes to all of them. I want all of that.
Yes.
Dennis, you want to chime in?
Well, I did mine. Like I said, I do software development as a career. So I already had my own web server with a database on it long before I sat down to write. So, and when I recently revamped the website, it was so that I could learn a new technology. I was looking at possibly getting a position doing Angular. So I learned Angular by rewriting my site in Angular. What I wish I would have known is that would lead to yet another layoff. And if instead I had learned how to develop well in WordPress, I could probably have gotten a job being a WordPress website developer more easily. But be that as it may, everything else, like I said, mine was just incidental. I already had the server.
Like Dennis, I had already been doing websites for a long time. So by the time I got to my author site, I already kind of knew what I want and what I needed to have. Well, my first websites were like on BraveNet or something years and years ago. And they didn't have a focus because I was in fandom. And so it was about Lord of the Rings and Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which did not mesh at all, but and so I think the biggest problem is not overwhelming yourself when you start a website, not making sure you have the bare basics, what you need to have. But there are always times where you can add a store later, or you can add different features to that website later. Don't overwhelm yourself. Get it up, get it presentable to everybody, and then you can tweak it later.
BraveNet, the answer to Angel Fire and GeoCities, right? The upgrade.
I have some of those too. I started on like Yahoo groups or something.
The upgrade, because you could do message boards on BraveNet. That's what I remember about why BraveNet was so impressive, right? Because you could do the message boards, which the kids out there today don't even know what that is. But
look, I was on the good old BBS days of where you had. I remember being happy when I went from a 1200 baud modem to a 2600 baud modem. 52K, that's crazy.
As an old BBS owner and admin, I salute you.
You too, huh? What type of BBS did you have?
It focused on the daily games like Legend of the Red Dragon and all that other stuff.
Dude, I meant software.
Oh, yeah.
Was it Wildcat? Was it Wildcat or Wiv or?
Oh, I think it was probably Wildcat.
I had a WWIV board. Yeah.
As we date ourselves.
Yes.
And nerd out at the same time.
Get off my digital lawn.
All right. So I alluded to it before, and we'll just jump right into it. There is, our brand is important, and who we are is important, right? But we also want the especially if it's an author site, to attract readers, because that's how you make money, right? You get readers. Novel concept. But so, is there an approach that you take to that aspect? Is there a little bit more of a fun aspect to that? Do you want to make it accessible, or as opposed to a business site, or is there a happy blend? Is there a nice little teeter-totter you can walk on that will blend the two together? How do you separate that mindset?
I think it's important to have things specifically just for your readers, especially like extra content and things that might attract them to go there. Maybe extra short stories they can get by signing up to your newsletter, or I haven't done it on my website because I'm always behind on putting stuff on there, but I've done things like quizzes to find out what character you are from some series, or and I've done a bunch of just small things like that readers want to go and check out your site. And the more time they're spending on your site, the more time they're looking around, the better chance you have of them actually buying something. So anytime that you can get them there for something fun, it's gonna one, make them remember you. But also, if they're spending time there, they're likely to go back and, increase chance of sale. So, and increase, like, I guess, a better relationship with you and your brand.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a fine line between fun and accessibility and coming off as unprofessional. And like, that's a big challenge, because at the end of the day, we need to be seen as, whether or not our books are serious, we need to be seen as real, serious, like, professional authors.
Mm-hmm.
And if I have an off the wall website, then chances are people are not going to look at that and say, yeah, this is a person who probably understands how a book starts and ends. And besides the fact that I'm totally going to borrow that quiz idea, I really like that. But I have a reader magnet on my site for signing up for my newsletter. I have blog posts that come out just kind of giving insight into my semi-professional life and what's going on. It's connected to my social media, but I would hesitate to make it overly, because one of my favorite authors, like John Scalzi, even he, with all of his irreverence of his blog posts and everything, his site is simple, it is straightforward, and you can find what you want there. So just always be careful of that fine line between whimsy and making it inaccessible.
Well, and I mean, Scalzi is a good example. So, I mean, John used to be an attorney. I've done plenty of panels and stuff with John. But when Scalzi kind of hits that thing of what's important to him, granted, he's got, he's one of the powerhouses in the business, right? Everybody wants to know who John is. And so it doesn't need to be anything complicated, because what you kind of see is what you get with him and the site. And it's just, what are his thoughts of the moment that he's dropping out there on the page? And I think that one of the things that we often can do is over-engineer or try to make something look bigger than it really needs to be. Is you can do stuff that's fun, like, but a lot of the time, if you're a writer, make the writing fun. One of the things I did for a long while was I had one of my characters that basically acted as the narrator telling twisted versions of fairy tales. So I would go back in and rewrite the fairy tales. And that set may be coming out as a book again. We'll see what happens. I've got something interested in it, but it was kind of this twisted retelling of fairy tales and myths and holidays and all that kind of good stuff. You can do a lot of things that are fun, but I think much to Ben's point, you also want to keep it professional, because if people are coming to look and see about having you do appearances, if you are doing stuff online, if you're doing media like this, you're doing conventions, whatever your case you're doing, it's also the thing that represents what can somebody expect. And I've seen plenty of websites that screamed not somebody you want to put in front of people. Now, sometimes that can be on brand and represent the market, right? But I've seen it plenty of times from, well, let's just say it was not necessarily an appropriate representation of the brand and the business they were putting out there.
I think it also depends on what you consider to be fun. For me, it would be gaming. And a long time ago, when I was first coming up with this idea of this universe, there's a time after the Automated Empire where there are little pockets here and there. And I came up with this idea for a game that I call Pocket Empire, and pocketempire.com is actually online now. And I thought of this idea for this game where these three small factions of humanity are trying to regrow in an area that was devastated by a massive war. So I've got the setup and I've got everything going. The only thing that's really keeping it from moving forward is I'm only one guy, and it's a pretty big idea for a game. So If anybody out there wants to help develop a game without funding, or conversely, if you're a multi-billionaire and you want to fund me, let me know. But yeah, PocketEmpire.com is a long-term test project that I've got going. You can poke around; it's kind of interesting, but there's nothing much there yet.
How many of you are doing direct sales on your website?
Not on my website directly, but shop.automatedempire.com will lead you to my Shopify store, where I do have novelty and merchandise, as well as a wide variety of other T-shirts and items for sale.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ben. I'm sorry.
Oh no, sorry. So I'm just about to activate direct paperback through Book Vault fulfillment,
Nice.
which has been kind of complicated. I'll see whether or not it's worth doing. But I do have an embedded spread shop for Spreadshirt for our author co-op is Caffeinated Terrier Press, and that's the press that I publish under. And so we at least, like Dennis was saying, we have merch with the publisher logos there.
Yeah, and
It does what it says on the tin, Dennis.
Yeah. For the parts I can dive into, but I mean, right now, mostly I'm linking out to Amazon and doing direct sales that are doing sales through them. That being said, I have in the past, and it will be coming again, where we do, other retailers coming through. At one point in time, I actually had a full e-com site where you could buy all the digital products and stuff through the site. Now, if you go to AE Workshops, you can still get a lot of the workshop products and things like that. We'll be putting up some more books and things like that that'll be available digitally through that as a part of the workshops company. Right now, we're testing this on a different vertical and a different line, but same theory. But yeah, I mean, with some of the things that's out there now, it is very easy to do it. Usually what I throw up there is, hey, if you want a signed book, let me know. I usually have inventory of at least most of what's available at a given time, for conventions and whatnot. And either A, come by and pick it up, or B, I'll ship them. And, I ship enough stuff frequently enough. Yeah. I get enough requests for it. So.
All right, Courtney.
I haven't yet. I keep saying I'm going to. I've been doing it for other authors for at least the last 2 or 3 years. So I've built a whole lot of them. I just haven't had time to do my own. So I've got a lot of experience in it. I've started a Printify store and started a couple things there, but I haven't linked it yet to my website. I've made some stickers, made some, mugs and magnets and things like that I'm going to start taking with me to signings. And then eventually, when I have time to actually work on my stuff, I will have it on my website. So
I'm curious, with the news that has recently just come out, how much you all are thinking about, because for those who don't know, Amazon is raising their rates for paperbacks, especially. And I was thinking about you, when I was reading that, I was thinking about you specifically, Jim, because you have that book, that beautiful book right next to you, which I am fortunate enough to have both the hardcover of and the paperback of. But that book is essentially one you want to have in your hands. It's not a really decent. I mean, I'm sure you do well on ebook sales, but it's not an ebook type of book. Whereas Final Assembly and The Too Many Gods and In Kingdom of Dreams might be more of that apt crowd that would go for the ebook aspects of it. So is the news influencing any of you right now to kind of think about, this is a time to maybe start pivoting toward direct sales, because you're losing money every time you get a paperback sale from Amazon?
Well, I adjusted prices a while back, and some of the other stuff, but I get inventory and sell through not just Amazon, but Ingram Spark, different publishers publish, if it's traditionally published stuff, they control that. I don't. I've got some stuff that's gone through Lulu. There are some regional printers and things that we've done things with. In one particular project, we're still trying to negotiate some other stuff where we would be able to offer stuff on a larger basis, and still trying to plod through all of that. There's things that are out there that are available. Amazon being the 800-pound gorilla, you still have options. The question goes back to how much do you want to do to drive traffic to your site to do these things. Yes, you can make more money, but you're also going to have to do a lot more marketing for your site, paid ads, pushing stuff through social, doing things to grow the newsletter, all the things you should be doing anyway.
I might as well not fucking sleep, right? I mean, that's the bottom line, right?
What's sleep?
Yeah,
You've met me.
Yeah,
I think it's important to note that the price changes for books under $10.
yeah.
So you're talking everybody who writes novellas or short collections of poetry, small books, and it's going to hurt a lot of people.
But that's just the beginning, right? I mean, that is the infant step that they're taking to kind of ease you into what's going to happen, because tariffs are going to reign supreme here, and this is part of what is causing this little surge here. So, and that's what's going to it's going to get worse before it gets better.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm sorry, Dennis. I didn't mean to cut you off. I apologize.
Nope, perfect.
I would have to sell paperbacks for that to really matter that much to me. I'm already priced correctly. Yeah, I'm priced correctly, so the royalty change isn't impacting even my books. But most book sales I'm seeing are either ebook, or I'm also in KDP Select, so Kindle Unlimited page reads, which have died a horrible death because of the boycotts and the economy and all that.
Mm-hmm.
But to Jim's point, there's a reason that I'm still not a widely available ebook author, is because then I would lose any of the marketing support that I get from being exclusive to Amazon. And I already get few enough ebook sales alone that I don't think I want to add more to my 5 evening jobs to then also market for myself.
Fair enough. That's fair.
You only have 5? Well,
I was being conservative.
My publisher just took mine wide this month, so I'm no longer on Kindle Unlimited, but you can go to Barnes & Noble and buy my stuff now.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and for the record, my print stuff is I have it both through Amazon and Ingram Spark, so you can buy the print books from whatever retailer you prefer. It's just the ebooks that are still exclusive.
And that helps with the library system as well, right, Dennis? You're going to get into. I would imagine your publisher will get into Overdrive and all those places that Amazon was kind of hoarding from you a little bit, I would imagine.
Yes. We'll see.
All right, Courtney, you gonna jump on the soapbox here?
I haven't really had any adjustments to make to any of mine, because most of mine are anthologies and they're that big, so there's not, they were never under $9. And you're right, it's going to hit us in other ways. But I'm also wide. I'm on Ingram and I'm on KDP, and I make most of my paperback sales in person, so I can set the price basically for what I want. So right now it's not really impacting me. I'm sure other things will eventually. It's going to kind of, like you said, get worse before it gets better, but we always adapt somehow, and we keep making it happen. So
very true. Very true. That's one thing we are very good at, is adapting and figuring it out. Right. And, I've been seeing a lot of posts from people talking about raising, they, get it now because I've got to raise my rates kind of thing. And it was interesting because we're having this conversation today. I thought it was a good tie-in to the idea of, how to, get toward, because I do believe, and I mean, you all can foster your own thought on this, but and please do chime in. I do believe that going direct is going to be the norm in 5 or 6 years. I think there's just no way around it. I think you can do what you're doing right now, Ben, on Amazon, but once you have 10, 15 books to your back catalog, it's going to be tougher for people to kind of navigate that, and you're going to have another place to put all that, right? And so I think that's something that is where direct sales might be beneficial as a back catalog idea.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean it's possible. Again, just remember the exclusivity is only for ebooks, and I know a number. So for the record, I write urban fantasy, and urban fantasy is not necessarily a hugely popular genre right now compared to a lot of others. And I know another urban fantasy author with a back catalog of 15 plus books who just moved their work into KDP Select and Kindle Unlimited, where they had been wide for ebooks, and they're just immediately seeing more sales than they had in the past 5 years with the KDP Select versus wide for ebooks. Because again, like there's a calculus for being wide with ebooks that is it's not an easy question to answer. I have authors that tease me all the time for not being wide, but then they complain that they've sold one book through Kobo in the past 3 months.
Yeah, and urban fantasy is popular if you have a romance in it right now. So if you have, that's where it is, right, Courtney?
Yeah, I think so.
The buzzword of the century right now, or the year,
the romantasy and whatever paranormal romance it is, like the Renaissance for them right now.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I do really, really good sales in person at local conventions.
Sure.
That's the majority of the money that I've made this year have been at the conventions I've been at, and
that's as direct gets, right? And that is,
yeah.
And that is pappable money. That's you can quantify the cost versus the reward in that aspect. Where I think on websites it's a little different, right? Because you can't really. I mean, you could calculate your time that you spend doing this and the effort you put in versus what you get out of it, but nobody's going to do that because, like, we all have 5 jobs, 7 jobs, and who wants another job? I mean, who wants to do fucking math when you have 7 jobs, right?
Right.
So it's like, so at least there's a viable, a reward system for being in person, right? And that also that's also a very good direct sale, right? And how many are you seeing traffic going to your website too, Dennis, from what you're doing in person? Do people you seeing a little bit of a hit there? Is that helping at all?
Some. I get a scattering of hits. I get a couple of people signing up for my newsletter after every convention.
There you go.
Incremental.
How about for you, Miss Cannon? Did you see a bump in people visiting you?
I did, especially after it's according on which one I'm going to. Like Imaginarium, I always get a really good bump after. I went to Authors Rock Roanoke, and I got a few, but it was a smaller convention. It was their first year, so it really depends on where you're going and if they're vibing with what you're kind of putting out there. But I think it's like a bigger dopamine sort of hit when you can actually hand them the book too at the conventions than it is just packing it up to some nameless, some faceless person. So
I've been in the presence of the man underneath me right there right now, where he has actually sold books in an elevator at people. So that is
I'm going to try that experiment again this year. Hey, it mostly covered dinner that night.
Yeah.
Just because you were waiting for me, and that's when I sold $90. Yes, I did $90 worth of books with the ground floor to get to my room. So I'll take that. But I mean, the other thing for me as well is looking at websites. Like, I've done some experiments with speaking on panels at sometimes the same convention, where I've done things where I'll have a QR code that goes to a landing page for the book that it's like, oh, sign up for the newsletter and click here and you can get to the book. And I've also done it where, okay, click on this QR, go straight to go straight to Amazon.
Mhm.
Depends what you want to accomplish, but in those tests, and it's been a couple of years since I've done this, so things can have changed again. But when I do that, where it's like go through the website for the first in the landing page, that builds the newsletter. That builds a newsletter list, all that kind of good stuff. But I see a little bit lower of actual sales because it's another click. So it depends on which one do you want to do. You want to go for the longer term or the quick term for hitting it. But if somebody really wants the book, I'd rather them go to the landing page and get that full style and buy what they want to get than necessarily go to Amazon and go just click through and go, oh, okay, yeah, this is not for me. So for me, a lot of the time I've seen kind of that landing page at conventions work well. I mean, because if you're sitting on the panel, you're talking, you're doing, part of the reason you're doing that is get attention for you and everything else, as well as having the fun of doing the panels and getting up there and doing everything. But again, it's also the business side of getting attention. So if you're going to do that, you may as well then have the tools that facilitate making it easy for people to get to the book you want them to get to.
And I wanted to thank Jim for his idea about QR codes, because that's how I came up with this marketing card here.
There you go.
Which has all the books and the QR code that goes to the landing page for the series on Amazon. And then on the other side, it goes to the t-shirt shop with some sample designs there. So I hand these out at conventions now.
That's awesome.
I mean, I've done stuff back when people still sort of weren't sure what QR codes were and they trusted them. I've done stuff before, like we handed out stickers and cards and temporary tattoos and stuff with a QR on them that took them to books and things like that. Because like one year at Dragon, we were doing something tied into the Arrowverse. So yeah, we had these things that, tied into the color scheme and everything else everybody was using. That triggered a nice set of, spike of sales. Sometimes you can do fun stuff like that. It was worth it to spend $30 on the bunch of stickers and temp tattoos for what it did. But, QRs, at least in the States, kind of keep going through cycles.
There's a design concept to think about. And Dennis was, I think, alluding to this, was if you're thinking about your website or anything like that, a user should be able to get to whatever it is that they're getting to in less than 3 clicks, or 3 clicks or less. So if you're burying something deep into your website, expect no one to ever get to it. So like, that's why I scan a QR code, I click one link, I buy a book. I scan a QR code, I click a link, I click another link, I maybe click, like, the further they have to go, it's a psychological thing as well as just a good design concept. So if you're an author putting together either promotional material or your website, keep it simple so that they can get to it in 3 clicks or less.
Awesome. Well, something you can get to in a few clicks or less is the Indie Connection. And we're always blessed to have Miss Cannon do that for us every week. And we have another great one for you, a little bit of inking in blood for you. And then we'll be back to wrap it up and talk more about websites.
Hey guys, C.L. Cannon here from Fiction Atlas Press, bringing you another Indie Connection. And today I'd like to tell you about some books that you might enjoy if you're a fan of Daniel L. Jensen's A Fate Inked in Blood. The first book I have for you is called Scarlight by Evie Marceau. As a child, Princess Bryn was saved from a wolf attack by a poem that left them both scarred. Rangar's people believe that a life saved is a soul owned, and 10 years later, Rangar returns to claim his prize. But Rangar arrives on the night that Bryn's people rise against their despotic rulers. With Bryn's castle on fire and most of her family dead, she has no choice but to escape with Rangar's help. Was she rescued or kidnapped? Taken to Rangar's wild kingdom, Bryn slowly finds beauty in the harsh outlands. There, she discovers magic is not the sin she's been led to believe. As she learns the full truth of her family's tyrannical rule and plans to take back her kingdom by the sword or marriage, Bryn falls under the spell of each of 3 royal brothers. But which brother will end up with her hand and her heart? Not even magic can foretell. The second book I have for you is called Of Blades and Wings by Eliza Rain. She wants to earn her Valkyrie wings. He wants to burn every Valkyrie to ash. Princess Medivh is the Ice Court's best secret, until the Valkyrie come for her. Only her family knows what she can really do, and how dangerous it is to leave her tower. But she has been selected by the gods themselves to train at Featherblade to become a Valkyrie, an elite Fey guardian of Odin. If she is to make it against the other rooks, survive the wild hunt, or battle against the frost giants, she has to earn her wings and bond with an ancient animal gifted to her by the gods. She has to get stronger and work out who her enemies are and who she can trust. And she has to do it all under the burning gaze of Cain the Ruinous, villain of the Featherblade, her obsession. The disgraced Fire Fae combat trainer has had his wings removed and been cursed to burn anyone he touches. He is bound to Featherblade, but he makes no secret of the fiery devastation he would wreak if he could leave. And it doesn't take him long to realize that Maddie and her secrets are the key to his revenge. She knows she should avoid him. He's lethal, unhinged, and feeds on fear. But he follows her every move. He shows up whenever she is in danger, and he dominates her dreams. He tests her, pushes her, threatens to find and break her limits. When he is standing before her, fire in his eyes and heat blazing from his cursed skin, Maddie fears she would let the world go up in flames if he told her to. And if she's not strong enough, that may be exactly what happens. The third book I have for you is called Valkyrie Lost by Shannon Pemrick. Will one desperate prayer deliver me salvation or seal my destruction? I'll do anything for my family, even call upon the gods to save them. I didn't anticipate they would arrive in person to offer their blessing, and I most certainly didn't predict the feelings they'd evoke in me when they decided to become part of my life. As a Kurswolva, Norse witch, I have learned to not ask for more than I am afforded. So when Tyr and Baldur openly admit their desire to be around me, I shouldn't think anything of it beyond friendship. I am but a mortal woman, cursed to only feel the ache of a yearning heart, and yearn I do. From shared drinking horns to unforgettable nights, I foolishly believe my curse is finally broken. But when trouble amongst the gods stirs, I may just pay the ultimate price for my transgressions, and the price for spilling the blood of their Valkyrie is one too steep for any god. And the last book I have for you is called By the Sharp and Shadowed Wings by Rachel N. Harker. Fate is cruel, but the gods are vicious. Revna was once chosen as a sacrifice to the gods, but another took her place on that cursed boat, and she can never forget. Commander of the Midheim Maidens, she fights relentlessly to shield all she can from the darkness that's plagued her realm ever since. But now the boat has returned. To protect those she holds dear, she accepts her fate and is thrust into the realms of gods and monsters. There she must confront the one person who has haunted her days and nights for 9 years, the god of destruction himself. Fenrir, forever branded a monster, has spent most of his long life at the mercy of his very nature and the cruel whims of the Aesir, all to protect his siblings. But when a fierce shield maiden from the mortal realm washes up on his shores, a hunger long buried awakens, threatening to shatter the delicate hold he keeps on the monster that howls beneath his skin. As the twisted threads of fate unravel, Revna and Fenrir's desires grow into something undeniable. They must face their past and the sinister forces that endanger not just all they care for, but the very fabric of fate itself. Desires bind, fates unfold, and realms. Okay, that's all for me this week. I'll see you next week on the Indie Connection. Bye!
It's something about that last like 30 seconds when it's streaming live, because I play it right before I test it, and it never does that. But for some reason, when it's streaming live on StreamYard, it just makes that little glitch at the end, and it's always at the end there that it does that. It's weird. I'll figure it out, Courtney. I promise I'll figure it out.
Okay.
I was just gonna say though, I don't know if anybody ever had this ethereal experience that I just had with this particular Indie Connection, but the idea of like, have you ever been to a concert and you watched the opening band that you didn't know or you didn't like, and they blew the fucking headliner off the stage? No offense to Miss Danielle Jensen, she's a fantastic author. She doesn't need, she's she's multi, award winning and all of that. But she just got blown off the stage by those covers. Holy crap, those covers were fucking gorgeous. Those were amazing covers. That was awesome. I was like, wow. I was like, and then it just like kept going. I was like, well, one after the other. But that one with the sword was wow. That just blew me away. Anyway, good on Indies for doing that. I love it. So more of that, everybody. Go check those books out. We have a bookshop link for anybody who doesn't know. We are weeding our way out of Amazon ourselves, and we've incorporated all of our linking with books to our bookshop. So we have a bookshop affiliation page that you can go to and get all these books from the Indie Connection, including the big book that we're comparing to on Bookshop, and then you can support your local bookstore that way. So we really appreciate anybody who patronizes that for us, because I get a little taste, but you're supporting local bookstores, and that's what matters. So I really love what Bookshop is doing over there. If you haven't checked out bookshop.org, please do. They're not sponsored, but I just feel like giving them some love.
Any little bit of information can help.
So I have a pet peeve when it comes to websites, because I've been doing this for a long time, and you can imagine the amount of authors and artists that I've dealt with in interviews, and having to get their links from them and things of that nature, and then going to their websites and clicking on a dead link or a link that doesn't work, right? It happens more times than it doesn't for me. So I'm curious from all of you guys, how often do you update your website? How often should you update your website? I know that, we're all busy, and again, we all have 20 jobs, so it's very difficult. And sometimes we just don't think about it, right? Sometimes it just happens, right? Or whatever, the coding language changes. Sometimes that happens too. I know that's happened before. But how often should you, if you were doing your due diligence and working the 20th job, how often should you be updating? Should you update it when you have a change? Should you be updating periodically? How do you feel about that aspect of the website maintenance?
My first question is, what do you mean by updating? Because there is updating the infrastructure, the patches, plugins, whatever else you're using, and then there's the front end and the appearance. But I mean,
just maintenance in general.
Yeah, I mean, at least once a week.
Wow, that often? That's surprising.
I'm still recovering from something that when I was out of the country last year, we were gone for a couple of weeks. In the middle of that, there was a 0-day exploit that blew up a number of my sites, and I'm still trying to finish getting that unlocked and dealt with the hosting side of stuff. So
I recommend using a content management system that will auto update. So again, like I know C.L. Cannon mentioned WordPress. I mentioned WordPress. For authors who are not web developers themselves, go with something that's mostly going to update itself as far as a security and infrastructure standpoint. And that way you can spend your time updating with updates instead of having to spend a lot of time doing the back end stuff. So I tend to check my site regularly, but I really only have to do updates when there's a major change that doesn't auto update or I'm doing actual content.
Yeah, I try to keep my links, like my link to my book on Amazon. That's not going to change, but I still check it once in a while.
Well, actually, especially if you're using affiliate links, those will rotate.
No, I don't have an affiliate link. I'm not an Amazon affiliate.
Slacker. So, but I mean, another one of those things is if you are using affiliate links and things like that, be aware of the language you've got to put on your website as well. And I mean, there are certain things, language disclosures, privacy notices, all that kind of stuff you've got to have on the site.
Yeah. I'll hit on that as the last question, but Courtney, you want to answer the
I was going to say, I usually like Ben, I have everything on auto update. I mean, sometimes, most of the time that works. Sometimes you'll get a little hiccup and you'll have to fix something. But most of the time, that gives you peace of mind. You don't have to be back there all the time. And I'm on there quite a lot for like my giveaways and stuff. So I'm usually on there at least once a week. But I don't really do major updates. But maybe once every couple of months or something, unless there's something that really needs to be changed or updated. Then I'm not going to be on there changing anything, because my website's my brand and people really know it, know what it looks like, know what to expect from it. And unless it's not some aspect of it is not working, I'm not going to do a major update.
Yeah, and again, I think there's also a factor of how many sites are you hosting, how much stuff are you dealing with as to how often, because there's also a degree there of, because again, I've one of those things that I've run into frequently is the auto updates are what breaks something, because maybe a template, a theme, a plugin, somebody hasn't kept up, and that's what breaks. Yeah. So the auto updates can be really helpful, or they can be the problem. So
fair enough. So Jim alluded to this a little bit, but I am curious about how much you care about where your website needs the most work in terms of, like, you know, Europe has different privacy laws versus America and things of that nature. Are you paying attention to all of that? And should you pay attention to all of that? Is there a way to streamline all of that? You know, because it's different in different parts of the world, right? So
yeah. For me, the biggest thing is I don't collect information.
mhm.
If somebody buys a book, they go to Amazon to buy the book. If somebody signs up for the newsletter, I'm just getting their email address and permission confirmation from that email address that they want my newsletter, which is monthly and available at Amazon.com or AutomatedEmpire.com. Sorry.
There you
go. Well, because again, fundamentally, GDPR compliance, really all they can do is fine you based on your business activity there. But seeing as how I used to spend a lot of time in Europe, but I mean, if you look, New York, California have very specific standards.
Yeah, there you go.
Even if you're using a third party for your email, your newsletters, all that kind of stuff, most of them will handle most of the compliance stuff for you. Even so, there's things that you need to be aware can affect websites. Now, for the most part, most of us are going to be underneath whatever the thresholds are as to where most problems kick in. But again, that depends on what it is, because I've done things and frequently have been a contributor on High Volume, or we've built High Volume and things like that. So I kind of am programmed to think that way.
Yeah, I was going to just add to what Jim was saying, in that utilize tools that handle most of that for you. Like I use MailerLite for my newsletter, and other than making sure all of my information is correct in my account, like I don't have to deal with GDPR standards because that gets handled for me. But also, like Dennis, I try not to collect any personally identifiable information that I would be subject to data privacy laws about.
I think it's really important to be knowledgeable about these things, but I don't really think it's as important to stress out about everything, because there's going to be some third-party software, there's going to be some explanation out there that's going to help you get through it. If not, you can maybe go to an authors guild, like Alliance of Independent Authors, or someone if you need guidance. But for the most part, try to follow the rules as best you can, and don't collect a lot of unnecessary information. I see a lot of people that collect a lot of stuff for a newsletter sign up that you really just don't need as an author, like phone numbers, all kinds of stuff. We don't really need that. You just mostly need an email and their consent.
All right. Okay, so for this week's epilogue, I'm going to do a little rapid fire questions for you all. Jim, I'm looking at you.
I'm looking at you.
Brevity is king here, okay? Brevity is king. I mean, you can expand, but we are trying to do a little rapid fire here, Okay.
What are you trying to say?
Welcome to the epilogue. So my first rapid fire question is: what is your favorite website? What website do you go to the most often? Dennis?
YouTube.
Me too. Ben?
Word Hippo.
Oh, nice. Jim?
Probably right now YouTube.
Courtney?
AO3.
Nice. Okay, Courtney, website you would like if it was made better. You know, everybody here knows what I'm gonna say. Goodreads? You need to Goodreads? Okay. Then I have a second one. Jim?
Yeah, if you're going to do that with Goodreads, you also have to overhaul most of the user base. Websites, a lot of mine are tech sites. The stuff
That's
that
fine.
are, there's a lot of resource sites and
call
things
them out,
like
that's
that
fine,
for me.
but okay. Ben?
I bitch
just-
about all of them, and I go scream, get off my lawn, and go, wander around the yard.
Yeah, I'm just going to go with most of them. Your website is bad and you should feel bad.
Dennis?
I would spend a lot more time on the Facebook business front end if it actually worked or it was easy to use in any way whatsoever.
That's a fantastic.
But it's horrible.
That is
And
fantastic.
as somebody who would like to find a position where I could improve such things, hey, Facebook, call me.
Mark Coker, I hope you're listening because Smashwords is my answer. Holy shit, is that the worst website to navigate on the planet? And it has not gotten better since Drafted Digital's taken it over. I'm sorry, it just hasn't. And Mark, and I love you, Mark. You know I love you, but come on. I mean, it's time to get out of 1984. I mean, he literally created that like it was Goodreads, and it's fucking horrible. And everybody knows my thought about Goodreads, but
Brevity, Joe. Brevity.
you're right. Yeah. Thank you, Jim. Thank you for keeping me on point. I appreciate it. All right, Mr. Nettles, I'm going to start with you then. Website you have to use, but you dread every time you use it.
Ooh, most of them. AWS, anything in well, let's just go with KDP. Let's stick to the publishing side of stuff.
Okay.
KDP.
Okay, Ben.
Ingram Spark is literally the worst.
Dennis.
Yeah, I'll go with the Amazon. The whole, yeah.
Courtney.
Books to read is the bane of my existence because it never caches all of the wide links. You have to go in and put them in there yourself. And when I'm doing a book fair that has 300 links in it, I am there for hours just begging it to work. So,
All right, I'm going to start with you, Ben. The host site you swear by.
It's not the one that I'm on right now. I use HostGator and I want to get off of it for something like Bluehost, I think.
Dennis.
I use HostTech. It is a smaller company, and they have done really well by me. I've got my web server and database server, and it's around like 140 something a month. Does everything I needed to do, and they've been decent to me. Good support.
Jim.
None of them at the moment. I'm pissed at several. But I mean, iOS, I would say for most people in the webs, if you're looking to do WordPress or something like that, I like iOS. And some of the smaller ones. But for a lot of authors these days, I'm just sort of saying keep it simple. Go to Wix or Squarespace. While WordPress can do a lot for you, it's probably going to be more than what most people actually need to do.
All right, Courtney, this is your opportunity.
I use InMotion. It's just a small shared hosting site. It's not as popular as some of the other ones, but I've been with them for 8 years now, and I've had pretty good uptime, and they've handled all my traffic well. They're really, really helpful on the customer service side. If you ever have a problem, they've got support 24/7. They usually fix anything that gets broken. So, I mean, and usually stuff doesn't get broken often, so that's good enough for me. If I wanted something, if I had more money to invest in it, I might go with something like Cloudflare or something. But
And InMotion is one I have recommended a fair number of people to.
Bluehost for me. All right. Coolest
That's
thing.
currently my main bane. I've used them for off and on for 20 years, and right now that's one of my main problems.
All right. Coolest thing you've created on your website. Dennis, let's start with you.
I have a 6-suited deck of cards that I created for my novel, the first book. Just as an example here, here's one of the cards here, using art from Brian Gibson. Let me see if I can find a face card real quick. Oh, I'm messing this up. Anyway, the coolest thing that I ever created was I used digital copies of the cards to create a card game. And I've got it to the point where I can have 3 players playing cards. They can't see each other's hands. And I'm in the probably near the end of the beginning of developing it into a full-fledged system where people can just come and play cards with my deck online for free.
That's cool. That is cool. Ben, how about for you?
I'm just going to say the coolest thing I've created is just a clean website that works for my authors co-op. Like it's, and sorry, I'm going to go back real quick for an addendum. Like Jim said, get a real domain. I do not want to go to your .wix.site.
At least get one that points there, you know. That's the very least you can do. Good, Courtney.
I don't know that I've created anything that cool. I've got a
I mean, the quiz is pretty cool. That's a pretty
that
cool.
wasn't for my it was for one of my websites. It was for like a box set we were doing, so it would keep people there and get them to order stuff. But on my own website, I've got a favorite things list that's got like my favorite software, my favorite books, you know, different things that I like. And they're all affiliate links, but they are like stuff that I actually, it's not just me throwing stuff up there. It's stuff that I actually use every day or use often and that I really enjoy. So I guess that's it.
All right, Jim.
I mean, in terms of probably the coolest stuff has been some of the workshop stuff we've done over the years. With some of the forum groups and things like that, we were creating for classes and groups running through, and being able to create cohorts that continue to create these little networks and things like that is probably some of the most fun stuff we've done. Haven't done as much of that the last few years, even though doing more workshops and stuff again. So
I was part of Speculative Fiction Academy, which Jim was the dean of, and I have to say that was one of my funnest things to ever do on a website. It was to create a class and put that together, so that was kind of cool. All right, last question for you all. How many clicks before you're done on a website? I'll start with you, Dennis. How many clicks before you just go, fuck it, I'm done. I'm not going to do this anymore.
Well, it depends on what I'm trying to accomplish. You know, if I'm browsing through and looking at things, I can get pretty deep. But if I'm trying to find a piece of information, and for example, I was investigating this thing that said that this AI could run your advertising and do all this for you. So I thought, well, let me find out how much that costs before I, you know, really get into it. And I was like 6 or 7 things deep where it kept on asking me stupid questions, you know, without any way out. So I could just go look for the information that I really wanted. So yeah, maybe I got maybe 7 in before I dumped it. And that was Zeely. Zeely is crap. Don't even.
You are a patient man, my friend.
I mean, I kind of said it before, like more than 3 clicks and I start questioning whether this is worth my time, I'll probably give it to 5 before I'm just like, fuck it.
Courtney?
It really depends on what it is. If it's a story that I really want, like a book I really want, I'll be probably fussing the whole time about how hard it is to find, but I will be like Sherlock trying to figure out clues how to find this book. So it really depends on what it is. If it's something that I'm not that interested in, 2 or 3 clicks and I'm out.
Jim?
I've gone as far as 1 click, open the site and gone, you got to be fucking kidding me, and killed it. But there have been plenty, because again, there's that thing of when you do enough of this for long enough, you can tell.
Yeah.
Like Dennis, right? If I'm looking at a service or I'm trying to evaluate, because somebody's like, hey, I'm looking at using this. What do you think? And you go take a look. It's like, oh, I know. And you can tell exactly what it was built in. You know, you even often can tell what company is behind it. You're like, and no. But I mean, in general, I'm going to give 3, 4, 5 for most things, unless I'm going down a real rabbit hole researching stuff. If I'm trying to buy or license something or contract something, if I don't see a number up front, 99 times out of 100, unless I have a real reason to go digging, I'm like, oh yeah, this is bullshit, and I move on. If you can't tell me what it is up front and you're going in, I mean, we all know the funnels you go through, but
No kidding. For me, if you don't have your social media links on the front page of the website and I have to click, if I click more than twice, I'm never going back to your website ever again. If I have to go searching for that, and I get it. Some people put it in the contact. So that's the first thing I go to. If I go to the contact page and it's just a form, I'm out. I'm done. You will never get me back there again. Just the way it is. I will say, however, I've clicked incessantly for half an hour on YouTube to find a video. So I am guilty of that. That's the only time I click further than a couple clicks before. Also, if I click on two of your social media sites and 2 of them don't work, I'm done as well. That's it. It's over. One I can forgive. I understand one, but 2 or 3, you're not paying attention to your website at all at that point, I think. And I'm done. You just you lose me. All right. This was a wonderful conversation, guys. Thank you so much for indulging me, and I learned a lot. I actually took a lot of notes, and so I really appreciate all of that. I'm glad that you all were here to do that. So let's go back around, and we'll go the opposite direction this time. So, Jim, tell everybody where they can find you, sir.
The easiest thing to do is jamespnettles.com. That'll take you to Author Essentials workshops. That'll take you to Creating Prose. That'll get you to the different stuff we do with continual and online stuff like this. We just did a show that should be dropping in the next 2 weeks. I don't remember what date. That's kind of on book marketing, that touches on, kind of some of the greater stuff about social media. These days it kind of flows along with a lot of this. So cool. That's the easiest thing. Just go find the site, go find me on the socials, all that good stuff. And if you're interested in any of the workshops, most everything right now is full. But we'll be putting up a new workshop schedule for stuff starting in the fall.
Awesome. All right, Miss Cannon.
You can go to clcannon.net. I'm not even going to try to point to them. clcannon.net or fictionatlas.com. If you're a reader, you're probably wanting to go to clcannon.net. I've got a bunch of giveaways and my books there. Fiction Atlas is mostly for authors. Also, if you're going to be in Washington, D.C. on June 6th or 7th, I'm going to be there at Imaginarium signing books and having some fun. So I hope somebody will come out and see me there. I'm sure there'll be a lot of people. But yeah, it's me. I'm on all of social media except for Snapchat. And I'm not on Twitter anymore. So
awesome. All right, Ben.
All right. You can find me at benshankman.com. My socials are in the top left under my profile picture. So you'll be happy to hear that, Joe. And yeah, keep an eye on that. Sign up for my newsletter, and my second audiobook that I narrate and produce myself is going to be coming out hopefully by the end of this month.
Oh, cool. Right on. All right, Dennis.
Dennis M. Myers. I write science fiction in the far future. Rise of the Automated Empire is available on Amazon. There are links on automatedempire.com to all my social media. I tend to do a lot of hanging out on Discord, in the Talking Story Discord. We have a writer's talk that I'm very involved in.
Nice.
And speaking of Talking Story, they are a YouTube channel that has been really good to me. I hang out there a lot as well. I also have a YouTube channel, but
everybody go check that out. All right. I'm Joe Compton. This is Going In Now. Congratulations, you found us. If this is the first time here, thank you for joining us. We'll like, subscribe, do all the wonderful things that you do that helps us get seen by more people and more things. And as conversations like this get out there. So liking, commenting, and subscribing does all that for us. We really appreciate it. I wanted to mention that This week in Go Indie Now, we have a lot of stuff going on. Starting with Monday, we have the Spotlight on the Multiverse. I will be joined by Milton Davis and Janet Carden. It should be an awesome show. Milton's always a fun conversation, and this is the first time I'm meeting Janet, so I'm real excited about that. And that'll be Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern. And then it's followed by a wonderful, wonderful opportunity for live play with Mr. S.M. Hillman. He's going to be running a game of Black Sword Hack. One of the panelists here is going to be involved in that. Mr. Nettles is going to be one of the victims of that wonderful excursion. And you can see all of that Monday night. And then Tuesday night, we have First Time for Everything, where Juliet Rose welcomes in Russ Colmacheria. And he'll be on that show, and that'll be a fun show as well. And then myself and Brian Tan will finish off the week as he and I take over Go Indie Now. First with our indie wrestling show, Working the Indies. We're going to be talking about the NWA and its expansion into the world of the world, basically, and trying to take over the world in territory day, like the old territory days of pro wrestling back in the 1980s. And then we have our indie movie show, our indie movie review show called Saving a Seat. And we've got 3 really great indie films, 2 of which are brand new to the landscape that are just out. And then one, of course, each episode, one of us challenges the other, and this time it's Brian's turn. He challenged me to take a look at a movie that I can't believe I had never seen before in Hanging with the Homeboys. It's a wonderful episode. You're going to want to check that out. That's on Saturday, and that's what we've got going on. That's what we've always got going on, because it's always time to Go Indie Now. Thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you again soon. Bye, everybody.